Why WWE is a lot like Sandbox games today. This has to be the most far out there video that I've done. But I was after watching a guy by the name of Jim Sterling. A lot of you might know him. He is highly respected in the gaming community. He's very good at his videos. I watch his shit all the time. Highly recommend him if you're into gaming. Links in the description below. Now, Jim Sterling made a video, and it was big empty sandboxes, okay? And what he was talking about was that sandbox gaming. For anyone who doesn't know what a sandbox game is in the WWE world, a sandbox game is essentially an open world game very similar to Assassin's Creed, Watch Dogs, Far Cry. Pretty much like it's an open world, a massive open world, and you can do stuff and you can shoot people and you can do that, right? This is where the issue lies. Because sandbox games today have this massive world, just like No Man's Sky. That was a terrible game. You have all this kind of big atmosphere. You have the whole goddamn, it's massive, right? The game's massive. But the context of what's in the game is terrible. Side missions aren't working. The main missions are terrible. It's pretty much the same thing over and over and over again. Is it sounding familiar? For example, sandbox games, they have a lot in it. There's a lot of R's in it. You have to do a lot that's in it. It's massive. It takes up a lot of your time. Just like 3 hours of Raw, just like 2 hours of SmackDown, just like another hour of that 205 thing, just like NXT, just like the pay-per-views. You see what I mean? There's a lot of R's in wrestling. And just like sandbox games, WWE have sheer hours and hours and hours of wrestling, but they're not telling basic storytelling. Just like what Jim Sterling was saying in this video, sandbox games used to be good where they told stories. One perfect example is Grand Theft Auto. The reason why that takes a lot of years to make is because they actually take the time out of their way to do the game. The problem is with WWE as well, just like sandbox games, is that they don't add the meat and gravy that's in the actual show. That is why a lot of the shows that we're seeing right now are pretty much repetitive. Just like sandbox games. And it isn't just gaming. It's the media that we're living in today. With television, with everything that's going on. We're seeing a lot of repeating. We're seeing a lot of shit that's happened before, stuff like that. For example, I made an example and I said The Walking Dead was a great show. However, since I said that, a lot of people don't like The Walking Dead anymore. A lot of people don't like it anymore because it's too repetitive. It's going through the same thing over and over again. They don't like the characters in it anymore. They've done the same thing over and over and over again. It's just like The Governor. You see what I mean? This is the problem with WWE, is that they're trying their best to be like these other media outlets, and they're not being themselves. They're not being themselves. They're not taking the time to write storylines. Storylines right now, they drop at the space of a hat. And 9 times out of 10, a story that you drop at the drop of a hat is going to be crap. What WWE need to do is space out the storylines, make a lot of hours to come up. They need to take their time. They need stories in advance. I understand that there's injuries. I completely understand that. There's injuries that set setbacks on storylines and stuff like that. But my answer to that is that they should have storylines in the back burner. So they would have storylines that they might not put on television, put it on the back burner, have that then ready, lock and loaded, so if a wrestler does get injured, then take it out of the box, put it in, and do it until the wrestler comes back. That is what they need to do. They need to prepare more for the shows. They need to take their time. The problem is with WWE, just like sandbox games, is that they're spending more hours on crap and not actually producing great content. That is the problem. You could say the same for YouTubers right now. Not going to name names, but, not knowing in the wrestling industry, but if you look outside the wrestling industry, in terms of YouTube, they're just pumping out sheer volume of stuff. Just look at this trend that's happening right now, the 1,000 degree knife thing with a Coke bottle, right? That video got 56 million views. And what happened? YouTubers like Comedy Shorts Gamer and KSI, and listen, I like those guys, nothing against them. But rather than actually producing great content, other than what we've seen with this 1000 degree night thing, then they started doing it. That's the problem that we're facing right now, is that there's no originality, there's no original content that we're seeing anymore. It's just repeats. Look at movies. They're rebooting it every 2 seconds. But back at the topic at hand, and that's professional wrestling. Professional wrestling, unfortunately, is trying to be like other media. And it shouldn't be. Wrestling is not the same as other media. They can take aspects of it. Yes, I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is that very basic storytelling needs a beginning, a middle, and an end. WWE have a beginning. It lingers. It's kind of shit. When are they going to end the storyline? It lingers. Not naming names, but Kevin Owens and Chris Jericho storyline. It lingers. Then they do an ending, and then they set up another shitty storyline. Rather than actually building a storyline that they like, by the time they've done this Kevin Owens and Chris Jericho storyline, they could have already written 3 other great storylines. Now, SmackDown has shown some promise with AJ Styles. Not with the James Ellsworth thing, that was ridiculous. But SmackDown can show promise with AJ Styles. Okay? The problem is, they need to actually take the time for a storyline base. That's what they need. Another problem right now is the wrestlers. The wrestlers now, with their indie background, no offense, they're not charismatic. Yes, to some people, they might be great in the ring. And I'm not disputing that. Some of them can actually be good in the ring. However, the problem is with that, is that they have 0 charisma. 0. That's the problem. And when you don't have charisma, then how are you supposed to tell a storyline when most of your wrestlers can't even talk themselves? A lot of people love Cesaro, and I like Cesaro, nothing against him. But he is terrible on the microphone. Same as these others, there's no complete package anymore. That's why people now are gravitating to John Cena again. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, people actually like John Cena now in 2017. They're thinking he's the coming of Jesus, okay? And the reason why they're supporting John Cena is because he's talking on the microphone and wrestling, and he has that kind of thing about him. Now, I don't personally like John Cena. I'll be honest with you. Listen, I know a lot of people seem to be supporting John Cena, but I have to admit this. John Cena is terrible. I don't like him. I never did like him. He has shown promise with other movesets. But for me, the difference is between him and other wrestlers is that John Cena is an actually established wrestler. He should have got to this point early on in his career, to be fair. The only reason why people are liking him is because he's possibly retiring. But back at the task at hand, and that is why WWE is very like Sandbox games, is that WWE, just like Sandbox games, got a lot of hours involved in it. It's massive. It takes you a lot of time. 3 hours on a pay-per-view, 3 hours on fucking Raw, 2 hours on SmackDown, 1 hour on that 205 thing. You got then 1 hour on NXT. That's pretty much like a full-time job. And rather than doing excessive hours for WWE, why don't you just set up good storytelling? Guys, I'd like to thank you so much for watching. This is General Jerry on the General Jerry channel. Signing out.